Hey everybody, this is John Mulligan with Action Coach here in Clearwater and Dunedin, Florida. And today I'm joined by Jamie Pittner of Voluntary Insurance Partners LLC, where she is a managing partner. So welcome to the podcast, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. So thanks for much. So tell me a little bit just about yourself personally, and we'll get into business. Like, where'd you grow
Sure.
up? Where are you from?
I hail from the steel town of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and grew up about 40 miles northwest, pardon me, southwest, and Steeler country. So I'm a Steelers fan through and through. Uh,
Nice.
in 2018, I left the city to come to Florida and make this my new forever home, but it doesn't mean a little piece of me isn't still a steel town girl. I got my little Steelers bell right here.
Oh, very nice.
Oh yeah, you got to have it. You never know when you've got a win to celebrate. But that said, I've got five children. Four are grown, one teen still at home. And well, I guess you'll get into the particulars about my business and how that interacts with my life.
Yeah. So on that note, tell us a little bit about Voluntary Insurance Partners and how did you get involved in that?
Okay, sure. Um, Interesting. I was ready to start the other end and we'll work backwards. That's good. Voluntary Insurance Partners was founded in 2020. Yep, right in the height of COVID. A colleague of mine. There are a number of us that worked for many, many years, and I mean decades, for a publicly traded voluntary insurance carrier, probably the one of the most well-known brands in the world. And, you know, having started there, I started with voluntary insurance, or excuse me, I started with that carrier almost 20 years ago. And many of the folks who I work with still to this day, my fellow partners, they are the ones who initially peeled off to they had outgrown and they wanted to do something better. These are the folks that were there late 90s, early 2000s and really built the company we see today. They noticed something that I came around to see last year, and that is that any company, no matter how great the company, in my opinion and their opinion, when you reach a certain size, let alone become publicly traded, the the dialogue changes, the customer shifts
Hmm.
from the consumer, the end user, the policyholder in the insurance space to the stockholder. We wanted to get back to what it was originally, and that is that mutual carrier feel, that put your arms around your community feel. Does not have to be twist your arm. It can be education based. And I today is that we're educators and we sell via when we educate you, there's no other choice but to go with us because we're going to offer the best in class at the best price. And that all happens through the centurions of experience between the fellow partners and myself.
Okay. So a couple questions on that. You said voluntary insurance. It's in your title clearly, but you also mentioned it when
Yes,
referring to the publicly traded company. What is the definition of a
yes.
voluntary insurance?
A voluntary insurance is that in inside our industry, we will call it worksite benefits, ancillary benefits. These are the things other than major medical. They're going to
Okay.
be your short and long-term disability, life insurance, dental, vision, accident, critical illness. The things that pay the consumer, the employee cash in the event something medical happens. So if we think over here, we've got medical insurance. Who do they pay? Doctor, hospital, right? The
Right.
provider. Great. I appreciate that. Florida Blue paid a lot on my behalf last year. Thank you, Florida Blue. And then over here, we have our finances, our mortgage, even our house insurance, our rent, our car insurance, all of those things. Well, where do the two meet?
Hmm.
And that's where we are because when something happens to a family, and I say to a family, not an individual, because if when one individual gets a diagnosis, the family gets a diagnosis. And when that happens, whether it's an injury or illness, three things always happen. Always. One, bills go up. All of a
Hmm.
sudden now I've got copays, deductibles, etc. Maybe I need Uber because I can't drive. Maybe I need housekeeping. I don't know. Maybe I need to go to Germany for special therapeutic treatment that I feel more comfortable with because it's a major illness.
Hmm.
Whatever that looks like, my bills are going to go up. We all know it
Right.
instantly.
Right.
We also know my income might go down because I might not be working. Or even if it's my child, guess who's not working? Myself. And
Right.
at the same time, what's still coming in the mailbox is all the bills. They don't stop. Those
Hmm.
three things will happen to every single American. And in a time when we're looking at people with deductibles and out-of-pocket maxes that they can't meet, 60% of Americans cannot meet $1,000 deductible today. They don't have $1,000 on hand for an unexpected expense of any sort. Over 50% don't have $500 on hand. This creates a society of fear around going to the doctor and a sicker society. We are there to
Hmm.
relieve that financial pressure so that additional money is coming into the home while that family is dealing with that situation. And we do it in a
Okay.
lot of modalities. I think the important thing to give here is that it's not exclusively beneficial to the employee. The employee is actually not who I would consider my client. Does that surprise you?
It does actually. Yeah. Who is your client
Okay.
then if it's not the employee?
It's a great question. It can vary. I would say my number one client always is going to be the business itself, the business owner,
Okay.
because again, not mutually exclusive. I can benefit. The best thing in the business's interest is to take good care of their employees. Number one
Right.
concern and consideration of a business owner these days is retaining and attracting the right employees.
That is
Highly
so true.
competitive market out there.
I hear that all the
Research
time.
will
Hmm.
absolutely. So when I give the business owner, for instance, the last thing I did prior to logging on to meet with you, I just sent an executive summary off to someone I met with last week outlining how in lieu of 50 cent an hour raises, they could fund a very rich benefit program and have far more impact because 50 cents an hour is what, $20 a week. Nobody's getting out of bed for $20 a week, but they will stay for a rich benefit package. And
True.
so when we can serve the employee and position in a way with the employer that serves the business itself, that is indeed who my customer is to keep that business in business by keeping
Okay.
those employees and taking good care of them. And then I have a secondary customer. Maybe we'll get into that more later when you talk about where my business is going. So I'll pause there because I know I've been rattling on a lot.
Well, good. So just one last question on how did you get here? What is your pedigree that brought you into this insurance business?
That's where I thought we'd start and what threw me. Apologies for my being
I threw you
prompt.
for a loop. I do that on purpose. It's to try
You
to trip you up.
did. You did. Everybody starts the other direction. So I had to think about that one a little bit because it sort of very much leads. It's a path that I led me to. I didn't go find. I was led to where I belong, and I really feel that sense of belonging. So when I was 9 years old, and I'll date myself, 1982 in Western Pennsylvania was not a pretty time. It might have been pretty in the Reagan years in California. It was not in Pittsburgh. The steel mills had fallen, and the
Hmm.
entire economy was based on steel, which meant there was no construction, there were no restaurants, there was nothing. Whole towns have still to this day. I could take you on a road tour of what were bustling blue collar towns are now ghettos and vacant gang houses and crack houses. It's
Wow.
very
That's a
sad.
shame. Hmm.
The city on the whole has done a good job of becoming Google has corporate headquarters there. So I will give a little shout out for the recovery of Pittsburgh, but it is a very different Pittsburgh and it had to go through a lot of pain to get there. That made an impact on 9 year old me because my parents quickly realized that there was not any work for them. And if they wanted to provide, they had to go do it themselves. They turned to self-employment, ultimately advertising. And I began working. I began in the office as a child
Hmm.
because we did our own graphics, whatever that meant. And by the time I graduated high school, I was a brand new 2 week 18-year-old, and my dad sent me to sell advertising commission only to car dealers because he said I would never starve if an 18-year-old girl can sell to car dealers.
True. That's a
So
great
that's
skill
what I
set.
did.
So many people need to be in sales at a young age.
Yes. And to know I could provide myself. I was told early in this, actually, when I went to insurance, one of the first things that I was told was sales is a place. This is a quote from a famous CEO in this country. Sales is a place where you know exactly what you're worth.
Hmm. That's very interesting.
That's a very interesting statement.
Yes. Well, it's
Mhm.
funny. Action Coach actually has our definition of sales is professionally helping someone to buy.
That goes back to my education.
Hmm.
piece. If I can educate you, I can sell you, and I know my worth in this industry, and maybe if it is for me or not for me.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so I stayed in the family business other than my hiatus at college, thinking I wanted to be an engineer, but then I ended up having a young family and took me back home to where the business was growing.
Hmm.
2007, at this point, we have magazines that advertise cars and homes. So you've seen them on cigarette
Yep.
machines and restaurants and grocery stores and the like back in the day before Zillow.
Yep.
And I went to a conference for printers and publishers, and I said, "Oh, we're in trouble." I came home. I said, "This thing called Zillow and Redfin, they're all coming. We need to adapt." Family wasn't ready to tackle that at their age, and I decided it was time for me to make a pivot. And true fact, in the Great Depression, which my grandparents talked a lot about, the two industries that weathered it the best, bars and insurance.
Yes.
COVID took out bars, so what's that leave us with? Insurance.
Insurance. Yes, exactly.
So, and because of some personal experiences that I had had where I had very robust medical insurance, but I still felt the pinch of when you need to go outside of that medical insurance, what that does to a family financially. And I didn't know that these sorts of indemnity plans existed. When I found out about them, it was a natural fit because I felt passionate. When I feel passionate, I then, to your point, can professionally consult and educate for the greater good.
Right. Okay. So you talk about your client is typically the businesses more so than the customer. So when you're looking for a new customer, who are you specifically looking for? Like, what's your target market?
Yeah. And I would say that was different early in my career than to now. If I was talking to a brand new agent, I would tell them to go down market, go down three, four, five, 10, maybe 20 employees. It's
Hmm.
simpler. It's faster sales cycle. It's like cooking bacon and eggs on your front burner.
Right.
Everybody wants to come in and close the big whale, the Moby Dick. Well, first off, those take 2, 3 years to close. And when you're seasoned, and I do work on those, but they're more your back burner, your stew that you're simmering.
Right.
But I've been through a lot of iterations of my career. When I first came to insurance, I was an agent, spent about 6 months as an agent, wasn't trained, didn't know I was supposed to be trained.
Hmm.
Therefore, I just kept running into walls like a cartoon character until I figured out what worked and what didn't. But I did have that sales background, the
Right.
boldness. So I was promoted to management in 6 months, and all of a sudden, I was given new recruits to train. That became my customer. My customer began imparting a skill set, and I started to really care about that. Taking someone who thought they could never be more than maybe a minimum wage retail worker and teaching them how to become a professional. I did that for 9 years. I then decided I had done what I could do there. It was time to move on. I'm a very growth-minded individual. I get antsy if I'm not growing.
Hmm.
Moved to corporate. At the time, I was told, why would you want to move from 1099 sales to corporate? You're doing so well, you'll take a pay cut. And I said, because I want to see how the sausage is made.
Right.
So I spent 4 years in corporate, both in corporate training and in asset management, and then came out of it prepared for my next role, which was a very large, it's the top of the food chain role at this huge company in the sales leadership positions, and led about, oh, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 counties here around
Hmm.
the Tampa Bay area. And my job was to recruit to the team, grow the team, increase sales, increase profitability, conversion, et cetera, and spent 4 years there. My customer at that point was my team, so they could go serve their customers to
Hmm.
clear the path, reduce obstacles, support them, cheerlead them, be their therapist, whatever it took. And I ran a full-scale office. Last year, I had some personal considerations that I needed to slow down, and had been feeling increasingly uncomfortable with that conflict between stockholder and policyholder and my team, to be honest, and shielding my
Hmm.
team was wearing on me. That's when Voluntary Partners came to me. Again, we all come from a very similar pedigree and said, "You ready to look at something more win-win?"
Okay.
And it's been a year and I am in my glory. And now my customer is still that business that business owner, whether they be 5 or 5,000,
Hmm.
I can handle all business sizes. I can do it with, I think the best compliment I ever got was lethal simplicity. But I understand down market, mid market, and high market and can
Okay.
approach each individually. So whether it's the owner operator of a little business or whether it's the CEO of a major conglomerate, all of those I work with on the daily. And then I have an additional customer that I'm really focused on in this upcoming next 12 months, and that is the local brokers around me. And I'm sure that'll
And
raise curiosity why I would want to work with other brokers, but I'll leave it there.
okay, yeah, I may know somebody, but we'll see. So when you talk about customers, you talk about a large variety, but can you be without necessarily disclosing who your customers are? Can you give us a little example of what a typical business would look like that you're trying to serve? Is it anything? I mean, from like a landscaping
Largely, it's
firm, tree service,
lo-
like
yes, I would say there's a very short list of businesses I can't serve. They're usually very high risk, physically high risk. I don't know, like you have a bungee jumping company, I probably can't help you. But
okay,
most businesses, every agent will have their own. Some will say, I love law offices. Some will say, I love medical. I used to have real strong preferences. Those have gotten less so as my experience has led me to appreciate all. I personally do, if I'm being really honest, you get a drink in me, I'll tell you, I love me some nonprofits and some trades. Give
okay,
me plumbers, electricians, and so on. These are folks that are, well, the nonprofits, every dollar that they use inefficiently is another dollar they have to go replace. So I feel
true.
very passionate about that. That's at the core of our community and me being a good citizen.
Hmm.
Second are trades. These are individuals who make plenty of money, probably lead a nice lifestyle, but they realize they are very physically um, vulnerable,
Yes.
and so I have had some of my best thank yous. Thank you for saving my house, have come from trades. And I think that that's hugely impactful. But really, there's nary a business other than a business run by teenagers that's not appropriate for me.
Okay, all right. And then how small is too small? I mean, I know some people that are like solopreneurs, that kind of thing. Is that you don't need that in that scenario, or do you?
We need three.
You need three? Okay.
We need three on payroll. Three do not have to participate. I can have two participate.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm talking to someone who self-identifies. Let's say you self-identified as a single proprietor.
Hmm.
And I talk to you and I find out that legitimately your wife is your admin and your grown child is your social media person.
Okay.
You tell, and I say to you, they're on payroll, they're on QuickBooks, or they could be. Um, then we
Right.
have three.
Okay. Oh, see, that's useful information there because most people don't think about that. Right.
Yeah, it's my job to be creative. I ask
Especially
this
spouses,
question.
yeah. I talk to business owners and I'm like, "Are you the sole decision maker?" And they say, "Yes." I'm like, "Do you go home and talk about your business with your wife?" And he goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Well, then you're not exactly the sole decision maker." If somebody at the kitchen table has a
Yeah,
veto power, there's somebody else there in the picture. Right.
absolutely. And sometimes it just takes people thinking out of the box. In no way am I saying your wife who doesn't even know what you do, should you put her on this as an employee? No. But if
Right.
she's legitimately working with you and an integral part of your business, why would we exclude her?
Absolutely. No, that totally makes sense. What um what is one of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome, especially in the last year that you've been with this company, but just in general?
In general, we always say this. Whether you're thinking about any of the large carriers out there that do this, the Aflacs, Colonials, Combines, Chubb, Unum, or a small brokerage like myself, we're all going to
Mhm.
say the same thing. Anybody who knows what's up in voluntary benefits will tell you it's selling the need. That's what we sell as the need. Why does John Mulligan need an accident policy? And that is
Mhm.
because of this. I'm convinced. Our grandparents bought us Gerber Life when we were born. They told us to buy medical insurance. They told us to keep 6 months stay. We're comfortable with medical, dental, and life insurance,
Right.
but we don't have a 6 month nest egg.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't realize that because they don't have that, because that missing component, they're not equipped like their parents were. Their grandparents had pensions. They have 401ks. When that $10,000 out of pocket bill hits, where are they going to run? Their 401k, where are they getting it from?
Yeah.
Retirement. These are the things they don't sit on a couch on Saturday morning and think about. It's my job.
Right.
So we have
Right.
to sell the need. Why does your employee need this? Why does the employer need the employee to have it? When
What are
we
some of the
do that,
go ahead.
the rest is taken care of.
So what are the major objectives that you receive or objections that you usually hear?
People need to hear repeatedly it is not major medical. This works whether you have zero major medical, you have the
Hmm.
best major medical, you have Medicaid, or you're a veteran on a VA plan.
Hmm.
We do not care who is paying that doctor bill. We care who's sending money to your home so that you can prioritize
Okay.
on what is important, and that is healing. And
Sure.
that is the number one hurdle is you saying it once isn't enough. It's a lot for people to get through I think we're going through a re-education of America, and I'm happy to be part of that. And
Yeah.
that is why I'm really, I mentioned earlier, my my next customer, my customer, as I've transitioned more and more and more, as a matter of fact, in a year, I project 80% of my business to come from fellow brokers. You go, well, why
Hmm.
would another broker give you business?
It's like
Why
the
would
other
it?
kind of like medical brokers and that type life
Yes.
insurance brokers because they don't provide the type of service you provide.
Well, okay. Some of them do. Your PNC broker who sells boat and motorcycle insurance, they probably don't sell what we do. They don't know it, and I can visit them and I teach them how to cross sell.
Right.
However, who I'm mostly looking at are those major medical brokers. They're out there with the Florida Blue, the United Healthcare. Can we do what can they do what we do? Do they have access to it? 100%. Just
Okay.
like your PCP can send you for a cardiogram, right?
Right.
But
Right.
at some point, who do they want to tap in? The
The
cardiologist.
cardiologist. Yeah, exactly.
That's where I am positioning myself with the brokers is for many years when I came on the scene in supplemental insurance in 2008, the medical brokers really weren't that interested in supplemental insurance. They were in their heyday with medical all up until Obamacare came. And we have seen a steady decline in compensation and quality of plans and blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all. And medical brokers are looking very seriously at voluntary. However, they have
Mm.
been very focused and they are, I have the utmost respect. I'm doing a big case right now. I've got a folder in front of me with a huge global broker. Um, and what they put together, I have the medical specs in front of me. It's gorgeous. What they don't have is 20 years experience of doing one and only one thing for all 20 years. I'm not talking about a
Hmm.
dabble here and there, but hyper
Yeah.
focus on every step of the process. I went into corporate, learned how they made the sausage, remember? They don't have anybody like that on their team that can really go in and take this arm of their business and exponentially grow it. And that is the pivot now is the broker is my customer. I'm the specialist. They can be the PCP. I tell them my tagline right here with my brokers, you own the relationship, I own the grind.
There you go.
That's it. Hand it to me. Let me do what I do best and bring home the money to you and
Okay.
a happy client.
Beautiful. Now, do you work by yourself or do you have a team that works for you now?
Our agency, we have a large back office team, but I no longer, our back office team is so strong. I sadly had to let go of my right hand admin. Oh, God love her, but I still talk to her. But yeah, our back office is strong.
Good. And then just if you wouldn't mind, just kind of what's your sales process? How do you go about going from lead through to selling the product and getting a sale?
As a new agent, that was very much hoofing it down the street cold calling. And I
Mm,
think that's still a very effective method for somebody who needs to do that. For me, at this stage in my career, it's going to be both. If it's either going to be broker driven, those relationships, or it's going to be referral driven, whether
Okay.
they be from existing clients, friends, family, or even existing customers. Who do they work with? Who are their distributors, et cetera? Or even my community involvement. I'm about to take a board position in a prestigious HR association locally. Those sorts of things bring me referrals, but it takes time to build that sort of acumen and patience because it's a
Right.
very reward as new in the business who's contemplating this business, I would say get out and hoof it and wear out some shoe leather because
Yeah.
nothing works better in any business than kissing babies and shaking hands.
All right. Sounds good. And gosh, we're almost out of time. What would be one thing? Well, two more questions. One is, where do you see your business in the next 3 to 5 years?
I see it, quintuple itself
Really?
are my
Okay.
projections.
All
Yes,
right.
very much. Yeah, we voluntary insurance partners up until last year was very much West Coast, Colorado, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, we're unique. There's nobody in the country that can offer, we've approached differently. And this is where I told you I'd ramble and somebody will edit, make this look much prettier. Um, Most brokers out there, even those others who've split off to other agencies like my own, are taking a different approach. I've talked to some of them. They're saying, hey, Mulligan's tires. We're going to go to work for you. We're going to pit all the carriers against each other and make them fight for your business. We instead form relationships with our carriers and say, hey,
I
if
see.
you scratch our back, will you scratch ours? That's the
Hmm.
other thing these large brokers are getting from us that why would they need us? Why do they need the specialist? Well, because we're the only ones who have these platinum underwriting offers that even the largest agency in the world does not have with these carriers. So this case for right now is going to piggyback off of my underwriting. Everything I do is guaranteed issue, no questions asked, no pre-existing conditions. You have cancer, I can do a policy.
All right. Good.
Their service make us really special in the industry. And so I think as word grows and the broker market embraces what value we can bring to them, see huge exponential growth and a re-education, not just of America's population, but of America's brokers.
All right. That's fabulous. And then what's one thing you would change that if you could just today, either in your industry or your business, what's one thing that you would think maybe it's frustrating you or something you would want to change?
I would like there to be a recognition. I don't know what the vehicle is for this. We need a PSA to America. We need more voices than just mine and my colleagues
Hmm.
saying there's a solution to surviving middle class society or even working class society in America, given our current healthcare restraints. Everybody wants to complain about what healthcare looks like, but there is a way to protect oneself, insulate oneself, and have a happy outcome. And it's really quite simple. And if we could have a larger distribution of that, and I don't know what that looks like, but I would love, for instance, you know, um, more voices telling people what to go seek, what to go ask their employer for. People just don't know. They know their problem, they don't know what to ask for.
Right. They probably don't even know this product exists. That's one
Correct.
question I often ask my customers when we're initially onboarding. Do you think your customers know all of the products you sell? And almost universally they say no, they don't.
No.
So same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, good. All right, we are at the bottom of the hour, so I will wrap this up. So today we've been joined by Jamie Pittner of Voluntary Insurance Partners LLC. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your provoking questions.